So today, kind of a special Sunday that you walked into, and we are going to get to hear a special message from our very own Amy Bambila. I'm going to introduce her here to you, those of you who don't know her. So about 3 months ago, Amy came to me and essentially said, I have this word that God laid on my heart. And so we got together and we talked about it and looked at what it was. And, I was kind of reading it and felt like the Lord was saying, just hold off for now. But there is a time when this is going to be very, very pertinent. And as we began to talk, and then Amy actually took on leading the missions trip. So she's actually the missions that the mission trip to Mexico we're going to be going on. Amy's actually heading that up. And so as we were talking about that, we began to talk about what was laid on her heart and realized that there was this thing God was doing that I believe is that today is the right time to hear this message. I believe that today is not only because of the mission trip that we're about to go on, but because of where we're going as a church. I actually really believe this is a prophetic message that God laid on her heart for us today. And so I really want you to tune in to what's being said, to what God might be doing in your own heart today. And Amy grew up essentially as a missionary. She, at the age of 17, for 9 years, served with her family in the Philippines as a missionary. She is an amazing lady with an amazing heart. If you know her, she works here at the YMCA as well. She's a volunteer coordinator as well. She has many hats, I'll say that. And I'll tell you that she has a heart for people that when she begins to talk about it, I remember when we were meeting for this, I saw the tears start to form as she began to talk about people. I felt an intense love for people there that Amy has, and I think you will sense that in this message as well. So, without further ado, I'll let her, she has an introduction of herself as well, so I'll let her do more of that. But please join me in welcoming Amy Bambila.
Thank you, guys. Man, he's going to make me start crying. I'm like, where's Jacob? Because I'm identifying with Jacob Camargo right now. The weeping preacher. So I did go to the Philippines when I was 17, and it was a really interesting experience being called from small town, middle class America to the other side of the world. I'd actually just graduated from high school, and my parents gave me the opportunity to either stay and face college and semester breaks and holidays without any family in town, or go along with them to the other side of the world and see what we might find. So I decided to take a gap year, and it turned into a gap life. No regrets. But so while we were there, we literally went out into the streets. My sister and I, when we got there, we were living in tents, and we didn't have any friends, and we were used to a really active youth group with friends. So we went out into the streets and started making friends. We literally stopped them with our photo album. Do you want to see a picture of America? So, yes, they did. But it wasn't that easy for my parents, and so they were doing parent stuff, and they, adults have a different sense of being able to be humiliated than kids do. Like, we didn't care what the language barriers were. We could act stuff out. Parents, not so much. So it was a couple of years, and they had developed some friendships with pastors, but not many local people, the way that my sister and brother and I had. And so it was kind of fun when one day this guy came across our land, and he was using our driveway to cut across the end of our property and a few more fields to get to the road where it would take him to his farm, like about a half a mile or so from our house, but as the crow flew over the field. So he cut through, and he started talking to my dad. And Filipinos actually speak English pretty well, but they always feel like their grammar isn't correct, and so they won't speak it very often if they feel like you were going to criticize their grammar, which is why a lot of people didn't speak to the adults. And so he started talking with my dad, and he had a pretty good sense of grammar and pretty good sense of vocabulary, but he also spoke really old-fashionedly. Like, he called young women, I'm not making this up, one time he called them damsels. And so I was like, okay, he learned English from like the archaic textbooks or something. But so he and my dad kind of developed this friendship, and as they were talking one day, and he had visited multiple times by then, just, stopping and saying hi on his way through, my dad had asked him a question about something, and he said, I don't remember the question, but Lucio is this guy's name. He says to my dad, well, now that we're intimate friends, I can tell you the answer to that. And my dad kind of, oh, intimate friends, all right. He's like, yes, we're intimate friends now. I think the modern term would have been besties, but he didn't know modern terms. And so that actually became his nickname for my dad. He would call him Intimate. And so when he would be like, hey, Intimate, I heard about a cave. You want to go explore it with me? Or, hey, Intimate, you want to go to the sea and go fishing? And so it was really funny. And so as I was thinking about this message that God had laid on my heart a few months ago, it was the intimacy of abiding. And that story came into my mind, like the word intimate, what does it mean? And so, of course, I had to look it up, and it's from Latin, and it means inmost, impress, or make familiar. And so the Merriam-Webster Dictionary says it is marked by a warm friendship developing through long association of a very personal or private nature, marked by very close association, contact, or familiarity, and belonging to or characterizing one's deepest nature. So, thinking about intimacy then, or intimate being that definition, you get to think about who are the people that we are most intimate with. And it becomes the people that we know the best, right? Because you develop this long association, that personal nature where you get to know people by spending time with them. So I would say that since I was reading in John 15 when this revelation came to me and the word was abide, that we become intimate with the people we abide with. So then, of course, we have to look up abide. So abide comes from the Greek word meno, to dwell, stay, or remain. And the definition from the dictionary, to accept or act in accordance with or without objection, to continue in a place without fading or being lost, to live or dwell, to be able to live with or put up with. That's an important one. To bear patiently or tolerate, and to remain, continue, and stay. So the differences between abiding and visiting, I think, are fairly obvious. They're complete opposites. Abiding would indicate a home life, intimacy, familiarity, and permanency to a degree because you have this long-term relationship. Visiting would be something like a hotel stay where you're mostly going to encounter strangers and it's very temporary. So abiding is really a choice that we're making when we decide to go somewhere and stay there and to stay with someone. It's a choice that we're making. And it would be, like when women get married and change their names. They're choosing to abide with a husband, to take on a different identity. It's a decision that they make. If people go into the military, they are deciding to abide by the rules of that branch of service, to identify by that branch of service and their code of conduct, and abide by where they're sent. So abiding is a decision to stay and dwell and be somewhere. And as we stay and dwell and be somewhere, then intimacy can develop. So I was looking, the verse that sparked all this was in John 15:4. Abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. So that's a really deep thought. We've just come from a garden talk and vines and abiding and having to stay connected to something alive. So the more time we spend with someone, the more we get to know them. And the intimacy is developing. So, like, for example, we recognize things in them that make it special, like handwriting. Like, I could pick out my mom's handwriting in a pile of letters. I would know which one my mom wrote. She has beautiful handwriting. We know the sound of their voice when we hear them walking down the hallway. We don't even have to see them yet. We know, oh, that sounds like so-and-so. And it is. Or we know what their reaction might be if they hear a piece of news. They're going to love this or they're going to hate this. We kind of know. So all of us can say that we know what it's like to abide with someone, whether it's our parents or a roommate, a spouse, kids, even pets. We all have characteristics that show us that we're abiding, like we understand that. So if we can find that in our personal lives, then we can go a little bit deeper and relate that in our spiritual life. And God always gives me personal revelation, like simple, homey revelation to explain something that's happening spiritually. So he gave me 10 characteristics. And before you go like, 10, that's a lot. It is, but they're easy. So don't worry. It won't be painful. The first characteristic that we are abiding with someone is evidence. So if you go to my house right now, you will see that there is evidence that I abide with a lot of people. Every morning there is coffee stuff on the counter. I'm talking coffee beans, the sugar with the lid off, the spoon where it was stirred, the coffee little grounds holder, and a little trail out the door probably. There are shoes all over our floor, by the door, by the chair where people took them off. They get kicked into the middle of the floor. We have a lot of shoes at our house. Seven people live there. If you go in the bathroom, there's gel on the counter, there's toothpaste in the sink, there are towels on the floor, evidence that people have been using the bathroom this morning. And we have pet hair on our couch, so you can definitely know that we have animals abiding in there as well. It's a circus at the Bambila house. So evidence shows up, right? So then we have to ask ourselves in our spiritual life, what is the evidence that we're abiding in the Lord or abiding with the Lord? And how do people see that he's living in us? Like, what's the evidence of that? If we look at John 13:35, by this all men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. So I would say the predominant characteristic of the evidence that God is in us and living with us is that we can love one another. And I don't mean overly love, but I just mean that we can love one another the way he's given us a chance by loving us. The second characteristic would be an awareness of presence. So wherever I am in the house, if I stop and listen for a second, I can kind of tell where people are by the sound of their presence, right? So I can identify footsteps when I know who's walking down the hallway. I know by noises in the kitchen, whether someone is in the kitchen or in the bathroom, or if I hear the TV on in the living room, I know that someone's in the living room. So there's awareness of presence, and I don't have to actually go into that room and look for them and, okay, now I know where you are. If I listen, I'm aware of it. I can just tune in by paying attention. And we don't even ask permission from each other to move from room to room. Like, I don't say, hey, can I go to the kitchen for a few minutes? We just move freely. But as we move, we know where each other are going and what we're doing. And different sounds can mean different things. Like in the morning, if I hear a shower, I know somebody's getting ready to leave. They're getting ready to go out and leave. At night, if I hear teeth brushing and things like that, I know people are getting ready for bed. So we know by sounds what is going on, and we can be aware of those presences. And so I have kind of a funny story about this, knowing routines and habits. When my kids were small, and they used to sleep in. They were the rare kids that slept in and didn't wake up at the crack of dawn. So when I woke up, I would just lay there and love the silence for as long as I could. And so I would lay there, and then as I knew their routines and habits, usually the first time when you would hear them wake up, you would hear little footsteps come down the hall, and they would head to the bathroom first, and then you'd hear little tinkling noises, and then they would come to find where I was. That's the routine of little kids, right? So one morning I was laying there, and it was quiet, and I was loving it, and I heard little tinkling noises. And I was like, what? How could somebody be going to the bathroom without me hearing their footsteps? This is impossible. And I was thinking, they're not stealthy, they're kids. So what is going on? I jumped up. I had to investigate it. I went in, and I'm not kidding you, I found my cat peeing on the toilet. So she gave me a really dirty look, like, get out of here, I'm busy. And I was like, okay. So new awareness of presence. Whenever I heard tinkling noises with no footsteps, I knew it was the cat, and I did not bother her. So that is a true story. So asking ourselves then, how are we aware of the Lord's presence in our daily lives? Like, how do we sense him moving in and around us? How do we tune in and just listen for a minute to feel and know where he is without having to get up and say, if I don't have proof of where you are, I don't know where you are. We can sense him if we just stop and listen and tune in for his presence. In John 15:5, he says, I am the vine and you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. And we don't mean nothing like you can't even walk down the street. I mean, yes, you need oxygen and all that, but he provides that. But I mean, we can't bear fruit without him. We can't do that. We can't live this life successfully without him. We can't be aware of his presence without him, without tuning in. So, another characteristic, number 3, sometimes separation brings good things. And I'm talking about when we are a family, we don't just hang out in one unit and go around all together everywhere, all by ourselves, just like a little cluster. We have to do stuff. We have to go out and live. The kids go to school. So when they go out and they're separated from us because they're at school, they're doing something that's good for their future. That separation is bringing a good result. If I go to the grocery store, that separation from my family is bringing a good result because they will get to eat again. That's their favorite thing. When my husband goes to work, I don't have to see him at work to know that he's working because he has a paycheck that comes in every 2 weeks that I take pretty much for granted. But that shows me that when he separates himself from us and goes to work, he's doing something on our behalf. He's doing something for our good that is going to benefit us, even though we don't get to spend the whole day with him. And so how can we see that God is providing for us even when we can't see him? When we feel like we're in a season where we can't even sense him, even though we're listening really hard and we can't hear what room he's in. Can you trust his character, that he is doing something good for you, even when you can't see him at work at the moment? You know that he's working something good. And so we can know that in John 13:7, Jesus answered and said to him, what I am doing you do not understand now, but you will know after this. So sometimes the answer isn't at the moment, but after the period of wondering, the answer comes then. And so we can trust his character that he's there. Another characteristic, sometimes we are given tasks to do. My husband is really good at this because I'm home during the day. I work in the evening. So he'll leave a little stack of to-dos sometimes, like, hey, I want you to go to the bank and deposit this check. You need to return this, make a phone call, pay this bill. He's giving me little tasks to do with my day. I do the same thing. Like when I pick up the kids from school, I stop by the grocery store, I hand them my debit card, I tell them my PIN number. I'm like, go in and get this, this, and this for dinner, and this is my PIN number so you can use my card. What does that mean? These tasks are for our good, but they also keep me involved. I know the business of our family because Roland involves me in the business of our family by telling me the things that need to be done. I'm involving my kids in the business of dinner when I tell them what groceries to buy and my PIN number so they can pay for it. So what I'm saying is tasks aren't a bad thing. It shows that we're involved and that we're a part of the business. We're part of the inner workings. We're part of the think tank when we are involved in the tasks that are given to us. So what is the Lord giving us to do? What are the tasks that he puts in front of us? And please don't be like my kids, like, I don't want to do that. Be sincere when he's asking us something. Is he asking us to give? And is he asking us to give more than money? It's not just about tithes and offerings. Sometimes he wants our time. Sometimes he wants our attention. Sometimes he wants us to give a little kindness to someone. Is he asking us to serve? This is an important question today because we're having a Mexico meeting after church. And we can just ask the Lord, is he asking you to serve or give towards a needy family in Mexico that could really be blessed? We can, if we tune in and listen, we can hear the tasks that he's giving us. John 15:10 says, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. The task is keeping his commandments, but then the business is that we're abiding in his love. Like we're included in that love, his love and the Father's love. We're all wrapped up in that, and that's good. So those are some good parts about intimacy. Now, intimacy can also be intrusive. Remember that one definition that was, it means to put up with and bear patiently or tolerate. That is true also with intimacy. It's a two-sided coin. So in my family, there are projects that can be unappreciated. I talked to Roland about this. He's okay with me telling you that. He is a little home improvement nut. He loves to put up trim around every door and every window, inside and outside. He loves to put framework around the fireplace, and he does a really nice job. He's really good at doing it. Everybody that comes over compliments how nice the frame looks. He's put crown molding up throughout the whole house and around all the kitchen cabinets. And sometimes I take that for granted. I think he's doing another project. He's doing another little thing. And I recognize his style when I see it in other places. I'll be like, oh, yeah, Roland would like that. Sometimes I take a picture to show him, hey, you could do something like this. But a lot of times I'm like, another project. And then especially last summer, there was a project that I really didn't appreciate. He decided in our bedroom we had blinds on the window, and I liked those blinds because he just pulled the rope and they went across and it was easy. And he decided to install these big, elaborate wooden shutters that pull open like you're in a villa, and they have 8 sections of little wooden slats that you can open individually. And I just felt like that was way too much for our bedroom. I felt like it's overwhelming our bedroom. It's a lot of extra hassle. Now the air conditioner won't fit in there this summer. And I was not appreciative. But I have to confess that I did end up liking it because I like the air conditioning, but it's a little too cold, so I really like natural air. But Roland doesn't like the window open because it's on the back window, and he's afraid somebody might come through our backyard and climb into our window. And so he doesn't want the windows open. But with this wooden shutter over our window, he let the window be open and let me crack the shutters so we had like actual fresh air coming in. And I was like, I like this window because now I get fresh air. And so it was a project that at the time I did not appreciate at all, but it ended up being a blessing. So we can ask ourselves, what kind of projects is God doing in our life right now that we may not like the look of at the moment? We may think, God, I really don't need you doing something like this. And it can be things like developing a relationship with someone that's different than us. Maybe we just keep running into this person over and over, and God's like, get to know them a little more. No, I'm not sure about that. Maybe that's his project for you. Maybe it's being available to someone when they're going through a hard time, and it might be inconvenient, like they want to call and vent for 2 hours about pain that's happening in their life, and we want to Netflix and chill. So that's kind of inconvenient. But you know what? Maybe that's a project that God is giving us to do. And then maybe it's just getting us out of our comfort zone and going to do something that we've never tried before, but maybe it's something that we're supposed to do. And so we can count on his projects benefiting us if we trust them in the whole process. And then sometimes there is cleaning, which can be upsetting. Let me say that Roland is a clean freak, and he hates clutter, and I am a stacker and a saver. So this doesn't really go well all the time. And most of the time, I take his cleaning projects for granted when it's beneficial to me. Like, he's the one that always cleans out the microwave. I have never cleaned out the microwave in our whole history of marriage. He's the one that does that. And he takes out the garbage, he'll mop the floor. He's much more regular at those kind of things than I am. But sometimes I like those things, but sometimes I'm saving something and he throws it away. And then I am really, really annoyed. And I'll think to myself, I'm going to put it over here so he doesn't throw it away. And the next time I look, it's gone. I'm like, how did you throw that away? Well, if you don't want it thrown away, put it somewhere where I won't throw it away. I did. And you found it and threw it away. And so that is the way it happens. But that, to be truthful, I don't really miss most of the stuff he throws away. There's only one thing I'm still a little grudgy on. But the rest of it, I haven't really missed that much. And so I have to stop and ask myself sometimes, what is God cleaning out of my life? And what does he have to take out sometimes because I won't let go of? There are moments when he tells us, you need to stop that. It could be a relationship that we need to let go of. It could be a habit that we know is not helping us. We need to let go of those things. But if we don't, sometimes he will take it out for us. And that's not always fun. In John 15:2, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, that it may bear even more fruit. And that's not fun. I'll tell you a story that's actually kind of painful for me of an example of this. And it's not even a bad thing to let go of. It's the part about bearing more fruit. It was when we moved home from the Philippines in 2000 at the very end, and then my parents moved home from the Philippines in 2001. So we lived in Vancouver for all these years, had my kids with my grandparents close by. It was wonderful. We were such a tight-knit family. We did everything together. And then 5 years ago, my parents decided to move to Idaho without my permission. I did not okay that decision, and they decided to go anyway. And I was abandoned. How could they leave me and my kids and move to the other side of the state? It's just, it's so heart-wrenching. And I was really distressed and actually had a little bit of depression over this. But in the process, God showed me something so precious. He showed me that I had been attracted to the light of the reflection of glory in their lives more than the true light of God himself. And I had relied on them as a big spiritual support instead of relying on God himself. And he didn't want that for me for my whole life. So he let them leave. And I didn't lose them. I see them several times a year. We talk on the phone. But I grew in fellowship, and I developed this great Bible study group that came together. And I have had so much intimacy and fellowship and growth being in some of these groups that I would not have sought out if I had just kept my fellowship limited to my family circle, which I had for a number of years. So God does good things. We can trust that, even if it's cleaning that we don't like at the time. So a definite characteristic of being in a relationship is we are seen at our worst. Roland has seen me laying on the floor in front of a toilet, puking from morning sickness. He has seen me, I'm very emotional, and I can throw a pretty big hissy fit sometimes, you better believe it. He has seen me yelling at my kids in a very ugly way, and when I have been hurt, he has rushed to my side in the ER a couple of times, been right there. When I get sick, he brings me juice and goes and gets medicine for me. He does the chores when I'm down and not feeling up to it. He takes over running the whole household. And when he gets home sometimes and I've been cleaning house all day and I feel disgusting, he doesn't seem to be repulsed. So that is a good sign. And, kids, when kids love you, they don't care what you look like or how you've acted. They will still come up to you. Pets, have you ever noticed that when you're sick, pets know and they just come and cuddle with you and lay by your leg or just kind of rest with you on the couch? When we're at our worst, there is comfort from somebody that is intimate with us. And be assured that God has seen us at our very worst. He has seen the most shameful things that we have done before we knew him, and then he's seen all the ways that we've messed up after we knew him. And he still loves us enough to stick with us and never forsake us. And that's pretty amazing. Romans 5:8, God demonstrates his own love toward us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Still sinners, the ugliest part, and he still loved us that much. And then the good part about a relationship is you don't just get to be at the worst. Sometimes you're at your best. And an intimate relationship gets to enjoy that as well. Like when we're getting ready for a special event and you feel okay, my hair and makeup don't look horrible today. They get to share in that with us. And we share good moments with our family, going somewhere together and just knowing this is such a good time. We're all getting along. We're all enjoying this experience together. Roland and I love to travel, and we share some of those really great times together. We're wow, this is so cool. I can't believe we get to see this together. And we have inside jokes that make us laugh, really stupid and corny ones. And even though we've been together a lot of years, there's still more experiences to come. So, we don't know what the best and worst really is yet of everything. But it's realizing that God is there too, and he sees those things. He sees us at our best, and he is our biggest fan. He is so happy, and he cheers us on when we are kind to somebody we don't feel like being kind to. And when we grow and let him stretch us, even though we don't like it, he is like, yes, I'm so proud of you. He notices that our character is becoming more like him. In Psalms 147:11, the Lord takes pleasure in those who fear him and those who hope in his mercy. And I love it also in the good news. He takes pleasure in those who honor him and those who trust in his constant love. His constant love. That's the best part. It doesn't change. And so, number 9, going into this, honest opinions don't change love. And this is a hard one for us sometimes because as a society, we tend to get offended more easily than we should sometimes. And Roland is a really blunt person, and he can hurt my feelings pretty deeply because he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He just tells it to me. And sometimes he provokes me to change, though, with those blunt, honest words. I need that. I don't need a sugarcoating. I need the truth. And that's not the only thing he does. You know, he writes me beautiful cards that tell me how much he loves me. And so there's a good balance in that. And then my kids, I think every parent can relate when we say, like, there's nobody that can call out our kids' stuff like like we do, because we can notice it. But we're the ones that would die for them. So you can't say that because we're honest about calling us out on our stuff that it changes our love at all. It doesn't. And so we can praise God for that while he is calling us out on our stuff, he's also loving us. You know, and he does these little nudges to us, like, you could have handled that better, and you've got some extra time, so give it to someone. You know, you need to work on forgiveness, or you need to apologize for that. Or sometimes he just says, you need to leave that to me and let me take care of that situation and get your hands off it. And we don't like that either, but if we trust him, then we can know he'll do it because he instructs us, but he also reaffirms us. Just like what I said about us being willing to die for our kids, John 15:12 and 13. This is my commandment that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. So he loves us, he nudges us, but he died for us. The balance is perfect. And the last thing that happens in an intimate relationship is communication happens. In our family, we don't have a lot of formal sit-down times. Like, occasionally I do call a family meeting and we all have to talk together. But most of the time, I don't use special words when I talk to my husband or my kids. And I know that I can ask them for things, and they may not do it, or they may not do it right now, but I know that I can ask. And so we communicate sometimes without a word. You know, like there's the look, and then there's the look. And so we can do all kinds of looks and things to communicate. Cold shoulder is a communication. My kids know me really well. I told you I'm emotional and I cry easily. So they can detect that slightest little wobble in my voice, and they're like, what is she crying about? They look at me right away. Or if we're watching a movie and it's sentimental, they swivel their heads right over at the most sentimental part to see if I'm wiping tears off my face, because I am, and they know that about me. And they know if I try to watch TV with them after a long day, they look over and my eyes kind of glass, Mom, don't fall asleep. I'm not. I'm falling asleep. They know that. And with our pets, you know, I know the difference between a hungry meow and I just want you to cuddle me meow. So we know this thing. So communication is a natural result of intimacy, and it flows out of abiding with someone, that you can't be intimate without this communication. And so just like in our series in the garden that we were talking about how God communicates to us through nature, and just looking and noticing we can see it. When we read his word, we can see it. Sometimes that verse just jumps off a page. That is my verse today for me. He's communicating it to us. And sometimes in worship services, you know, everything fades away and it's just us and God. And that communication blesses him so much because he can feel all the praise that we've got in our heart for him. And communication can be spontaneous. Sometimes with our friends, you get a phone call that you haven't heard from that person in months. And I have 15 minutes to talk. That's awesome. And we can talk and enjoy it. And sometimes God just downloads a revelation boom. And that was spontaneous and so appreciated. And then sometimes we plan it. Let's make a date and let's go out for coffee. And then we can plan coffee dates with God in our devotions and plan times. So it can be spontaneous or planned. But the thing is that it should happen daily. It should be something that we try to daily communicate to him and with him and listen, Because in John 15:15, he said, "No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all things I heard from my Father, I have made known to you." So he tells us what's going on. He's ready. He's communicating what he heard from the Father. He's communicating to us. We just need to put ourselves in a position to listen to it. In Luke 8, 9, and 10, the disciples asked him, saying, "What does this parable mean?" And he said, "To you it has been given to know the mysteries of the kingdom." It means he wants to tell you. He wants to. He's giving you the chance because he wants to know. He wants you to know. And so to abide is to be intimate. And to invite that intimacy, then we have to be open to sharing our vulnerabilities and our strengths. The Lord knows us intimately. He really knows us intimately. He created us. It says in Luke 12:7, "Even the very hairs on your head are numbered." That's amazing. In Psalm 139, 1-4, I love this one. "O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thoughts afar off. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it altogether." He knows us so intimately. He knows our thoughts, our patterns, our habits, our words. He knows us. But he wants us to know him intimately too. He wants us to seek him out. Genesis 3:8. "Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day." So they knew the sound of him walking. They heard him walking. They knew his sound. They knew he was coming to seek them out and spend time with them. John 14:21, "He who has my commandments and keeps them is he who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself to him." Manifesting means to show you who I am and let you get to know me. He wants to show himself. Hebrews 11:6b, "He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him." Seeking means looking for. And Jesus says, "Abide in me, and I'll abide in you. I'll dwell with you. I'll stay with you. I'll be there with you." Like a season is coming up, Christmas, Emmanuel, God is with us, like intimately close to us. Ephesians 3:17, Paul said that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, dwelling, abiding, living, and staying with us. And in closing here, I just have a little acronym about abiding. A is for awareness. We need to be aware of his presence, tune ourselves into where he is. B is belonging, to know that we belong to him and that he belongs to us, and that we have that relationship based on that security that we belong. Intimacy, sharing our deepest thoughts, knowing them, knowing that he wants to share his deep thoughts with us too. And the decidedness part, that we are making the decision to abide with him, to stay in close relationship and to seek him out. And to be embraced, that he embraces us at our best and at our worst, and loves us unconditionally the whole time. And it's just like Lucio when he said to my dad, we can picture God saying to us, "Now that we are intimate friends, I can tell you everything." He wants to, so let's let him. I just want to pray for a second. If we can bow our heads. Lord, thank you. Thank you that you know us so well and that you love us so well. Thank you, Jesus, for your goodness. Lord, fill us with the desire to know you more than ever, to invest ourselves in seeking you, and to be rewarded in knowing you so deeply. Let that be the cry of our heart today. Let's just, if we could just stand up and sing this song together for a few minutes. He's not far away. He comes in close. That intimate relationship that comes in close, that heart-to-heart closeness that he wants to share so deeply with you, and that will bless you like nothing else blesses you. Let's sing that.